Hey everyone, welcome back to JarDev. This is a bit of a different video. This is just going to be kind of a send-off for the last Darkest Dungeon series that I did. I'm doing this kind of wrap-up at the request of Sean Heatherly, who obviously requested the whole Darkest Dungeon series, both of them. Sean got to request this because he backs the top tier of my Patreon campaign, which you can find at patreon.com/JarDev. So the idea that Sean had was for me to look into reviews on the game, being Darkest Dungeon, both positive and negative, to see why its fans like it and its critics line up with your opinion. So for that, I've got the Steam page for Darkest Dungeon open, I've got Metacritic here and OpenCritic. I don't actually know what's the difference between these two, but we'll look at both of them. If you're a bit out of the loop somehow, basically I did a ton of videos on Darkest Dungeon, and by the end of it I absolutely hated the game. I still don't like it. And I guess that's what we're going to get into in this video, like why I don't like the game. Especially as Sean notes, because I tend to like some games that are known for their difficulty. Most obviously Dark Souls, and also games that are filled with RNG. That's probably just because I used to play Hearthstone, which I no longer play. And I think as I've grown older, I have definitely started to not enjoy games with RNG in them anymore at all. Hence stopping playing Hearthstone. I don't play any competitive games anymore. I just play single player, like story-driven games at this point. And also finally, Sean wants me to look into whether I just don't like the game or do I actually consider it to be a bad game. And it's probably going to be a bit of both. And also we will finish off by looking into some of the story of the game, because I really like H.P. Lovecraft and I didn't pick up any of the story in this game because it was all presented in just like journal pages, and I just didn't want to read them. So we'll start out on the Steam page. Recent reviews overwhelmingly positive in the last, so that's 97%. Of 4,132 reviews in the last 30 days are positive. I don't know what's more shocking to me, that like only 3% of people in the last 30 days didn't like it, or the fact that there's been over 4,000 reviews in just the last month when it came out over 3 years ago now. The overall reviews are 86%, so very positive. That probably lines up more with what I'd expect. Like, I know it's a very popular game. And I will say I think it is a well-made game. The art's really, really good. It stands out really well. The music is really good. The voice acting's fantastic. I think it's just the gameplay that I don't like. It's a very stressful game to play. And I think pretty much like at the start of this year, I decided to cut all those kinds of games out of my life. So I used to play Hearthstone every single day. I used to play Overwatch, like pretty on and off. Like I would go like a couple of months without playing it and then play it like pretty hard for a few months. I'd always go back for all the events and stuff. And then at the same time I stopped playing Hearthstone, I just decided to cut Overwatch out as well, because it's a pretty toxic environment. So it's pretty stressful to play. And like I said, I just found like I was having so much more fun just playing solo single player games. Like a month before this time, I'd probably just finished up Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was all solo, all single player, and one of my favorite games ever. So I think I just decided to kind of buckle down, really strip out the games that made me not enjoy playing games anymore, and just focus on fun games for me. And I count myself very lucky because I do have that option. If we go into Steam here, I currently have 3,503 games in my Steam library. I have a lot of choice of what to play on Steam, so if there's something I'm not enjoying, I have no problem just closing it, uninstalling it, and forgetting about it. Let's find a great example of Prey right here. I probably played about 5 hours of it. 3 hours is just idling for Steam cards. I remember I thought like the first hour or so was really cool, very unique, and then just like every enemy was the exact same thing. And I just, last hour I was like, I'm not having fun with this, so Alt F4'd, uninstalled it. I paid like 25 bucks for this, which sucks, but yeah, I'm not gonna go back to that game. And that's the case with a lot of games on here, I think. Sekiro probably would have been a good example if I'd paid about 20 bucks for it. I paid full price, which is $80 Canadian for it, so I felt I had to push through and finish it. Didn't enjoy it, don't think it's a good game, So I think let's just start off by like going through some of the recent Steam reviews. Like it says, they're all going to be very positive. Like even if we look at overall reviews, just from like all time, how do we fucking see this? Actually, we probably can't see like older than the past 30 days ones, but that's okay. Maybe Steam reviews wasn't the best place to to start with. Like half of them are just like useless joke reviews. So we might as well start with this one. This is like the most upvoted one from the last 30 days. 48 people found it helpful. That's great. Here's probably like the core of their review. There's a lot of people that complain about the RNG being unforgiving, cruel, and often ruining dungeon runs. To that, a knowledgeable person will say that's the point. I guess that is the point of the game. It's built it's focused so much around RNG. And I guess to me, I just don't consider that a good game mechanic. Seems like kind of a lazy game mechanic. You don't have like well-designed difficulty. You just have, flip a coin when you start a dungeon. Heads, you finish the dungeon. Tails, you die right at the end. Enjoy! And I think there are people who enjoy those kinds of games. I don't think I ever really enjoyed RNG heavy games. It just so happened that my most played game was really RNG heavy, that being Hearthstone. So the review continues with, we'll all make bad decisions in the beginning, but that's the point. We learn. We learn to take more items than we really need. Blah, blah, blah. We learn. So this is like, I feel like there's a bunch of different types of gamers, and there's these kinds of gamers who, it's the same as that guy who was riffing on the person who cheated in Sekiro. Here it is. So like context was like, somebody posted an article on like Kotaku or something saying like, I cheated on the final boss of Sekiro and I don't feel bad about it. And then this fella tweeted in response, you cheated not only the game but yourself, you didn't grow, you didn't improve, you took a shortcut and gained nothing, you experienced a hollow victory, nothing was risked and nothing was gained, it's sad that you don't know the difference. And the internet rightly tore him apart for being just a little bitch. For taking a fun hobby like gaming far too seriously. And I feel like there's actually a lot of people who are like this, who see a video game as something that they've got to struggle through it and make themselves a better person from it. And then on like, not quite the far other end of the spectrum, but fairly opposite that is someone like me who just likes experiencing a game. Like, I play most games on like the lowest difficulty. I don't like dying in games, I just like experiencing the story and the world. So I think Darkest Dungeon is perfect for these kinds of people, but not so much for me. We might as well look at this little negative review over on the side here. They put 130 hours into it, and they think it's a bad game. I'm thankful I only put like, how many hours did I put into it? 34 hours. Phew. Like I said in one of the episodes, that's way more than I ever would have put into it. And like I said then, I quite liked the first few hours of the game, but as soon as things started getting too difficult, if I was just playing it for fun, I would have just stopped it and uninstalled it and never gone back to it. And they say it's too difficult, I hate that you can't adjust difficulty. I'm in a bit of a mixed camp when it comes to like difficulty adjustments in games. Like, I really like it when games have them. Like Spider-Man on PS4 has some of the best like difficulty and accessibility options I've ever seen in a game. Like, you can really tailor that game to be exactly the kind of experience you want, which is absolutely fantastic. So I love putting it on like quite easy difficulty. I'm Spider-Man, I shouldn't be dying every 5 minutes. But then on the contrary, obviously I'm a huge Dark Souls fan, and Dark Souls games do not have difficulty sliders. The only way to adjust that game's difficulty is using specific weapons and armor that's like considered the best, or by improving yourself. And maybe that's another reason that I don't like Darkest Dungeon or these really hard games, because I did push myself to get good at Dark Souls. My first playthrough of Dark Souls 2, which was basically my first game, like I did 6 videos on Dark Souls 1 and gave up really quickly. But Dark Souls 2, I just really liked the world so much that I pushed myself to learn how to play that game, and it took me ages. It took me until probably like my second playthrough of Dark Souls 3 before I started getting pretty good. And maybe I just don't have the patience to do that again for other games. Like, I was fine to do it for Dark Souls, because I had more patience back then, I guess. And then the other part of the review is, I just wish I didn't start this one and waste so many hours. That's another thing I really hated about Darkest Dungeon. Like, it would take so long to level up one of your characters to a decent level, and they could die in just one fell swoop. Usually dependent on RNG, you could just get totally fucked and lose a really, really high level character that took hours and hours to get to that point, and I just hated losing all that kind of progress. In contrast to that, I did used to really, really enjoy roguelike games. I guess I don't like them anymore. I haven't played one for ages, but like Binding of Isaac was one of my favorite games for a long time. And obviously those are all centered around losing most of your progress if you die. I guess like the difference there is a Binding of Isaac run is like, what, an hour and a half max? If you're like running it fairly casually. So you're not investing that much time to lose a ton of progress, whereas Darkest Dungeon you invest hours into these characters, and you can lose it all just like that. Might as well look at another negative one here, 26 hours, fairly similar to mine. The game isn't really all that bad, but I'm sick to death of all the random RNG. Characters can decide to not accept a heal, they can just randomly die out of nowhere, you can try and have them move and they can decide they don't want to do it, you can miss over and over despite having nothing that lowers your accuracy or the enemy improving their dodge. The not deciding to accept a heal is really, really annoying. I guess they agree with my view that RNG being the major focus of the game, isn't good game design. Because they say, I'm all in favor of a challenge, but this game is just flat out a roulette, doesn't feel like there's any skill behind it, it's literally just luck. And to say you have to make the best of a bad situation, I find to just be flat out poor design, and a nice way of saying we aren't going to rebalance anything, deal with it. There's a way to create a fair challenge, but literally random problems isn't the way to do it. Totally agree with all that, most people won't. That's just, I think, you just fall into two camps. One's very big, and that's people saying they love the game. One's very small, who just don't enjoy it. This actually had a higher metascore than I was expecting. It's got 84, generally favorable, 84 here as well. Compare that to something like Sekiro, is 88. So for critic reviews, 52 of them are positive and only 3 of them are mixed, no negative reviews. And I really have to question how long these people played the game for. Because like I said, I would probably enjoy the game for the first 4 hours or so. So if I only played about 4 hours, I'd give it a good review. If I played 20 hours, would not give it a good review. So it'd be quite interesting to see. It would be a mistake to call Darkest Dungeon a roguelike game. It is in fact a more elaborate version of Cookie Clicker. You play with numbers instead of playing a game. I guess that's pretty true. You know, there's like decision making. You have to equip your heroes, decide like what skills to level up, what skills to give them and stuff like that. But then once you get into the dungeon, it is very much just rolling a dice throughout the whole thing, I think. So we might as well go back to Sean's last question, which was, do you just not like the game or is it actually a bad game to you? And I really think it's a bit of both. Like I said, I think the vast over-reliance on RNG does come across as quite lazy design for me. I'm quite interested to see what Darkest Dungeon 2 is going to be like. I'll definitely be checking it out. If Red Hook Studios still wants to give me a key after this video. And like I said at the beginning, I think it's very, it looks great, it sounds great. It's just too much RNG for me. So I do partially consider it a bad game, and I also just don't like it. We got a little bit of story here on the wiki. I don't really know how to find too much about the story. I feel like it's probably one of those games where you'd have to watch like a 20-minute Vati video to find the story. So the narrator is the ancestor of the player and former owner of the estate. After a lifetime of debauchery and arcane pursuits, he excavated an unspeakable ancient horror far below the foundations of his mansion. So Lovecraft. This discovery shocked him into realizing the depths of his crimes and recklessness, only too late for him to personally make amends. In a final letter sent to the player, he bequeaths them the estate and urges them to reclaim it from the burgeoning corruption that now plagues it due to his actions. He then ends his own life. Even in death, however, the ancestor accompanies and guides the player as the omnipresent narrator. So I think I probably could have guessed like the first part of that, and like the Crimson Curse stuff. He would always talk about like, oh, I used to have tons of bitchin' parties here, but Now I look back on them with regret, so regretful. But I did not know that he ended his own life. Okay, so 3 years ago there was actually like a lore posting on the subreddit, timeline of events. I'm just going to read through this and give a little bit of thoughts on it afterwards. Yeah, so basically the ancestor was a bit of a prick. He just kept digging deeper and deeper and doing lots of weird experiments. He would dump dead bodies into all the places, like the Weald, the Warrens and stuff. He would make necromancers and they'd reanimate everything. So everything is all his fault, basically. It's a very Lovecrafty story. I honestly don't know what else to say about it. It's fine. Like, it's very Lovecrafty. It's like parts of it are lifted, like a lot is lifted right from Lovecraft. Obviously the Color of Madness is a very on the nose reference to Lovecraft, but I don't mind a bit of Lovecraft inspiration. Alright, there we go. That was my final thoughts on Darkest Dungeon. Please don't make me play it again. I hate that game. Hopefully I managed to explain my thoughts on the game decently in this video. Let me know in the comments if you have any more questions that I didn't address in this, and I'll answer them down there as well. Thank you guys very much for watching. Thanks as always to Sean Headley for all the support. Couldn't do the things I do without him. Leave a like and subscribe to this if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!